Hey everybody, welcome to a Saturday night stream. We actually had this planned, but I forgot to even really mention it. Aside, we talked about it on the fact that I was doing it if you were watching on the Gatriarchy last night, but I forgot to even schedule a time. Here we are. Yosef had wanted to stream with me. He was thinking it was going to be on his channel, but I was like thinking it was going to be on mine. And I'm like, well, why don't we do it on mine? I have a little bit bigger channel. And then you can end up broadcasting it on or downloading it and putting it onto your own channel. And so that's what he is going to do. But he was the one who kind of had the questions for me. He wanted to talk to me about gay club life. And hey, for the record, if you are in the audience and you want to participate in this stream, this is going to be one of the rare streams that I am actually looking at the comment section. So you can give me super chats and I will read them. If you decide to ask me questions that I don't want to answer, there is a chance that I won't give you a super great answer, but I will be reading the super chats. Don't you worry, people. I know that last time I'd streamed, I had Chadwick Moore on. I got like 3 super chats and I didn't read a single one of them. And, you know, that's pretty bad YouTube behavior. So I got to not do that. People are giving me their money and I'm like not even acknowledging that it happened. That's messed up. I can't do that to people. So I will do that. And maybe you'll get to a little bit of interaction from me this time. So that being said, Yosef, you are drinking. You are in Atlanta. You are not a homosexual, at least mostly not. And for some reason, you want to talk about gay nightlife. Why is that?
I heard you and Chadwick talk the last live stream. There was so much fire between you guys, and I texted Chadwick and I texted you like, and the wires start connecting. Like, what if lesbians just ruin everything for everybody? And then like you just kept talking like, I have to know because it's like naturally lesbians don't get along with me. In general, even with a lot of the trans community, they seem extremely fascist. Where like they kind of taking over the gay scenes. Where like if you don't date a trans man, then you're a bigot, even though they might still have a vagina.
Yeah,
and
they definitely do that.
Yeah, even with that article on Chadwick written was like he's bigoted if you are on Grindr and if you don't want to fuck the ugly, fat, disabled guy in the corner. So it was like I just wanted to know the whole history, like from how it was started, like from how gay life was beforehand, like from where it started off, like was kind of like a hookup culture and it was very through the AIDS epidemic. Yeah, I'm so drunk right now.
Epidemic.
Yes, I'm doing that, and then going all the way now to 2018, where lesbians are destroying the gay scenes, where it's no longer fun to be gay. If you think differently, you get attacked.
Okay. And first of all, no, he's not trans. Somebody asked. No, my guest is not trans. He is a mostly heterosexual guy. For all practical purposes, heterosexual. I've never even met him, but he
really update that picture because I have a beard now, and I used to stream on Twitch, and people used to think I was trans all the time because I had the long hair. Like, no,
no, but he's if you actually see him talking, he's obviously a dude. Like, he's not trans. I don't know why that is. What people would think that, but I'm not going to be reading all of the. I'm going to be trying to not look at the non super chatty comments, but I want to keep the window open. If I see some color, I will be more likely to respond. Just for the record. So, this do you want me to give you a brief history of gay nightlife and culture?
Yeah, like it's something is like. I'm kind of person with if something is interesting to me, I'm just obsessed with it. Like I need someone who's an expert. Yeah, and I feel like you are and Chadwick's an expert because I texted Chadwick like I think lesbians ruin everything, and he's like you already know the answer. I'm like,
So okay, being homosexual used to be illegal in the United States, the UK. Actually, the place where I think it was legalized first was in France, and at least in Paris. And so there were a number of Americans, like, huh?
It was a beer burp. Sorry.
Oh, okay. There was a number of American, expats or whatever, who were living in Paris because they were homosexual or at least sort of homosexual, wanting to experiment with homosexuality. And it was safe for them to do that in Paris. And so you had people like James Baldwin, who was a black author who was actually very involved in the civil rights movement. He was a really great author. I love his books. I mean, I've read 2 of them, and I've read a number of essays by him, and I've seen documentaries about him. And he was a really brilliant man. And he was, I believe, at least mostly homosexual. And so he lived in Paris during the 1950s or so. But then moved back to the United States in the 60s to help with the civil rights movement. And then there was people like Josephine Baker was in Paris during the 20s and 30s, and she was kind of a lesbian, I guess.
I know who Josephine Baker is.
Yeah, she had an affair with Frida Kahlo in Paris. And then there was... Gertrude Stein was there. She was this big lesbian author who was friends with, I believe she was friends with James Baldwin and also Ernest Hemingway, who lived in Paris. I don't know if Ernest Hemingway had any homosexual tendencies, but there's a number of well-documented famous people that were living in Paris prior to the civil rights era. The end of the civil rights era was when the gays started getting a little bit more involved in searching for civil rights types of equality for homosexuals. And but there were gay bars prior to the civil rights era. While it was still illegal to be gay, there were gay bars. There were a number of places, but they were always very guarded. They're kind of underground. You had to kind of know about them, sort of speakeasy style, I think is the best way to describe them. And Stonewall was in New York City, and Stonewall was one of the only ones that wasn't super underground. Everybody knew that Stonewall was a gay bar, and it was possible to be gay prior to this, to the Stonewall riots. Stonewall riots are kind of like the turning point when gay people started coming out of the closet, and that was in 1969. But prior to that, it was possible to be homosexual, but you'd mostly have to be closeted. You'd have to know which kind of bars to go to. And they would have drag shows at them, and there's a long history of, cross-dressing. And, what's funny is that back in the day, it didn't used to be that everybody was gay men. Rather, if you were gay, if you were a habitual homosexual who was always at one of these bars, you were one of the local homosexuals, they'd call you a queen, is what they would call you. And the queens were not supposed to have sex with the other queens. They were supposed to try to have sex with sailors and stuff that were passing through. And they would only ever bottom. They would allow themselves to be penetrated by the sailors, and then the sailors would take off. And that's where this whole stereotype that Navy guys are gay. That's one of the reasons that it exists, was because of I don't know how it became that way, but I don't know. Maybe it's something about having to exist on a ship with a bunch of other men, a bunch of other men for a very long time that attracted a certain type of people, So that's how gay culture kind of used to be. And a lot of the places were owned by organized crime, by the mafia. And the mafia would allow it to exist, and then they would make all the money off of the drinks, or not all the money, but a lot of it, or they'd at least have ties with the mafia. The mafia would maybe pay off the police officers to keep so that the police officers wouldn't raid the place, And but the police officers still would raid the places sometimes because they're supposed to do their jobs. So the places were actually very dangerous and violent. They were full of like fighting sailors, and they were illegal, and they were owned by the mafia.
So I got one question. When you mean it was illegal to be gay, was it illegal like to have like no
Anal sex.
wow.
And in some places, depending upon in New York City, it was illegal for men to cross dress. It was illegal for homosexuals to be drinking in a bar together. Somehow, like there was like all these little laws about it, and that's what the Stonewall riot was about. They kept coming in harassing, like having raids on the population. So then finally, they had a riot kicked off. And by the way, this riot was not spawned by transgender women of color. That's not true. That is a blatant lie. There were some people who you could describe as like they called themselves transvestites at the time, who were racial minorities. But largely the bar was composed of lower income people of all genders, but no, not all genders, mostly gay men, mostly cisgender gay men who weren't transvestites. And they were all colors, and they a lot of them were prostitutes, and it was like a place that you could go to be a kind of a outlaw homosexual and find a cheap hooker or something. Like
Well,
that was.
I have. Well, I don't interrupt, but I have a question. What is the difference in a transvestite or in a transgender?
Well, mostly the decade that we're talking about. Like back in the 60s and 70s, probably even the 50s, 40s, there were people that were just naturally, men that were born extremely feminine and felt more comfortable trying to dress as a woman for some reason. And, maybe they had a hormonal imbalance. Like there is intersex conditions where some men have more estrogen and don't produce so much testosterone. Maybe some people grew up with only sisters, and they always identified as female. Maybe there is mental illness. I don't really know. But what we do know for certain is that there always has been transgender people throughout history on occasion. And so cities start getting more and more full, and they start finding each other and hanging out with each other more. And back in the day, there was a few of them, not a whole lot of them, but they're probably at least a few dozen, 30, 40, 50 in New York that were always like that. Maybe a few hundred. I don't really know, but they had a pretty rough time because they for whatever reason they felt that they should be transvestites and dress like that all the time, and a lot of them were prostitutes. But it was they were getting they were going to jail and getting beat up, and they would get raped in jail and stuff by heterosexual men. That would happen to them, but they weren't the majority of the people at Stonewall. They were a small percentage of them, and somebody tried to say that a specific transvestite named Marsha P. Johnson threw the first shot glass at Stonewall, and that's what started the riot. Somebody wrote that in a history book. Some gay guy wrote that. But then in 1992, I believe, they interviewed her, and she denied that. And she said, that's not true. I didn't even get there till 2 a.m. When the riot was well underway. So nobody really knows how exactly the riot got started, because the history book that all these people were referring to has been debunked by the person that they said started it. But the important thing is that the thing did happen. The riots did happen, and then it sparked a whole gay civil rights movement. There was all sorts of activist organizations that came as a result of Stonewall. Like if you just go on Wikipedia and you go and look at like Stonewall riots, it will link you to like at least 5 or 6, probably a number more of other specific organizations that were like activist organizations and nonprofits and that kind of thing that came as a result of those riots. And then, you know, those activist organizations probably morphed into different things. So yeah. Oh, so Justin, you're putting in definitions. I know what the definitions are now for transgender, transvestitism. Yes, I absolutely know that. I probably made videos where I refer to those. Yeah, but what I'm talking about is that back in the 60s and 70s, there already were these people. Almost nobody was getting sex changes, and sex changes and hormone replacement therapy was not super common. People were super low income. If anyone lived like this, they were mostly kicked on the streets, and therefore they would call themselves transvestites. They didn't have the same terminology that we do now. That's all I'm saying. So
I have a question, Prince.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm interviewing you, but it's so many questions I have for you because I am, as you say, mostly not gay. But do you think the reason why the transgender suicide murder rate is so high is because there's so many transvestites and transgenders that are in the industry of prostitution?
I think that is a major factor. But I don't want to say that I'm like the expert on that, but I do have to say that that's probably a major factor. Yeah,
because I see a lot of I see a lot of people, not gay people, but like LGBT community, mostly lesbians who like, oh, transgender women is being murdered at an all-time high. It'll actually crank the numbers, and you're more likely being shot like per capital. You're more likely to be shot as being black to be transgender. But even Blair White had a story where she said a lot of the girls who are transgender was pressuring her to do sex work.
Yeah, it's a culture. It's definitely a culture. And we can get to that later, but let me just give you the brief history of the gay nightlife stuff.
Okay.
So the Stonewall stuff happened at the end of the 60s, and then all through the like early 70s especially, they were having like really a lot of direct activist stuff. Like there was constant gay civil rights activism going on for, you know, all through the early 70s. And then but by the end of the 70s, what happened was so in 1964, Life magazine published an article that said that San Francisco was the gay capital of North America. Now, whether that was true or not, I don't know. I don't fucking know. But what we do know for certain is that after that happened, a shit ton of gay guys, or a lot of gay guys, moved to San Francisco. A lot. Because why not? And probably lesbians too. Like if you, because people were very hostile to homosexuals in that area. You know, in that era, it was still illegal to be gay. It was so people wanted to be around other homosexuals, and everybody had already been moving to New York to be gay because New York is big, you know, and there's lots of gay people there. So then San Francisco and New York became the big gay places, and then probably a fair amount in Chicago, maybe a little bit in Detroit. And because remember, last century, by the 70s or so, Detroit was the largest city in North America, technically. Like it had more people in the city limits of Detroit than in LA or New York. And the only reason that Detroit isn't all that big anymore is because everybody moved away when the audio industry collapsed. And now it's only 1/3 of the size as it used to be.
Yeah, it's this big union state. And I know in Chicago, they had Boys Town, which was a gay neighborhood. And occasionally I'll go to Boy Town because there was this one ice cream shop where they make really, really delicious ice cream. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason I was go to Boy Town. And also, it's north side of Chicago, which is very far. I live in the south side of Chicago, and Chicago is a very big place. Mm-hmm. So I knew about the gay scene in Chicago mostly because they have really delicious ice creams. Gays are good at cooking.
Yeah. Well, Well, they're good at doing lots of things, and the reason why is because they don't got to fucking take care of families. So they get really autistic in the things that they get good at, and cooking can be one of them. And for the record, I just want to remind the chat, I am watching you. I'm not going to read all of the comments, but if you super chat me, I will actually read it this time. Just saying. Just saying. In the 70s, by the late 70s, the big cities, that's when disco became super huge, was in probably the mid 70s, and all through the rest of by the end of the 70s. I think 1980 was the official death of disco or so, and it stayed around a little bit, but it largely thrived in New York, and in Chicago, and in San Francisco, and in Detroit a bit, and probably LA a bit. They made lots and lots of disco records, and there was lots of disco clubs for gay men. There were like bathhouses that were actual clubs. Like it was like they'd have steam rooms and rooms that you could get, and a dance floor. And you could just go there for, 24 hours straight, just do cocaine and this is what people would do. They would go there and they would just do a whole bunch of drugs and have a whole bunch of sex. And that was going on all through the late 70s. And a huge percentage of disco records had gay men involved in them. And what was cool about it was that disco was, it was very multicultural, and and when I say cultural, I don't mean like, I'm not talking like Islam multicultural. I mean, it was able to fuse elements of, American rock and roll, white people type music, like Blondie and David Bowie were making disco records. And, but Blondie and David Bowie also made punk rock records. And then there was also like a lot of funk type bands were making disco records, and funk was, more of a black thing. And then there was Latino disco bands. There was this great disco band called Santa Esmeralda, and Santa Esmeralda was known for they did the cover of "I'm Just a Soul Whose Intention Are Good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood." That was in Kill Bill. That was like right at the end of Kill Bill 1 when Lucy Liu fights Uma Thurman, and they play that song. That's it's a really good song, and it has this like very Latin salsa type, not salsa, Spanish flamenco style. And that's what was kind of cool about disco, is that you could incorporate all these different sounds into it, because the only thing that really makes disco is having this like thump, 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 thump. And so straight people were into it, gay people were into it, and it gave a lot of gay musicians and DJs and club promoters and stuff an opportunity to be part of the music industry, and they hadn't probably really been before. Because people were buying disco records like crazy. Disco records, there's so many of them, and they sold so much because disco was one of the first musics that was really made, not like most prior to disco, recording artists, it wasn't such a huge deal. Most bands ideally wanted to go on tour and play in front of people and be like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or the Supremes, and be like these pretty girls like singing, everyone want to see them. Whereas disco was mostly made to be recorded and put on a record where a DJ would play it somewhere else. And so they sold tons of these records. And so some gay guy, or not some gay guy, but like a group of like 8 gay guys could make a disco record together in San Francisco or New York, and people all around the country would buy it, and they would have no idea that it was made by a bunch of gay guys.
Well, I'm gonna guess if you're doing blow, not saying I never done blow before, also not saying I never have. If you got some music going like dump, it just makes the high so much better.
Because it corresponds to your heartbeat.
And blow make your heart goes pretty fast.
Yeah, and it's easy for everyone to get on that same wavelength. And you know, it goes back to like it's similar to like African drum sounds. You know, it's kind of sounds like like these are it's like hardwired instincts into us, like that. Like throughout human evolution, there has been this you know, disco drum beat is something that the humans can agree upon. So that happened, and that became really really big, and to the point where like a lot of gay guys made their entire life around disco. Like that became the gay scene, was the discos and the disco bathhouses. And that's when AIDS happened. AIDS started happening in 1979, 1980s was when they first started noticing that they thought it was a mysterious type of cancer that was mostly affecting gay men. And then really soon it was this gigantic epidemic within a few years. Like a lot of, you know, we all know the story of how many people died from AIDS.
It was mostly in the gay community.
Yeah, almost exclusively. You know, less than 5% of the people who died from AIDS were not gay men. I would say probably, I mean, at least certainly less than 90%, and they were mostly drug addicts, and then some females who managed to, you know, have sex with bisexual guys or something. Like I don't know. So that happened, and during the Reagan years, things became a lot more hostile for homosexuals. Like in the 70s, it was cool to be gay. If you were in New York and probably LA and in certain places, like that's why David Bowie and stuff acted all like super gay, and he like all sorts of people thought that he was gay. David Bowie confessed that he acted gay and dressed like he was gay because he found gay men really fascinating artistically, and he feels kind of guilty for essentially appropriating their culture. Now he's confessed that. He confessed that before he died. Wow. And he knew Andy Warhol. Do you know much about Andy Warhol?
I did not.
Okay, Andy Warhol was a really really interesting character. He's somebody that you should research if you want to know about gay history. Andy Warhol, for probably over a decade, was the king of the New York art scene, and he was a crazy gay guy, really crazy. He was this. You've seen his artwork before. What he was famous for doing was making lots of stencils that he would screen print on, and he made an entire exhibition that was just about replicating the Campbell's soup cans, like every.
Yeah, I know exactly who he is.
Yeah, so he was a New York guy, and he always had like this like blonde wig, and he was like really really eccentric and just acted very weird. Like he acted like he was tripping on acid all the time, probably because he did too much acid, and he just kind of was perma-fried, so that's what they call it. And he had a factory where he lived in, and multiple people lived in it with him, and he would take young artists under his wing, and he would make them like sort of famous, but he would take a lot of the credit. He would take the majority of the credit, and he kept doing that like through the like I think the late 60s and all through the 70s, and even into the 80s he was still around. And he was the guy who made Jean-Paul Basquiat famous. Basquiat was this young black painter who a lot of people consider the most prominent, groundbreaking black modern artist of all time. But he died very young. So like there's people like Jacob Lawrence. Have you heard of Jacob Lawrence?
No.
Okay, well that's
all new to me. It's very interesting.
Yeah, Jacob Lawrence was a black guy who was a modern artist who, it was all right. He was okay, but Basquiat is actually cool. Like Basquiat's work is worth looking at. Like if you ever see actually why don't I screen share some of it, because his work is interesting. And you got to remember is that like, nobody had made anything like this prior to oh shit. So let me open up a different window. Prior to Basquiat existing, this type of work hadn't been made. The sort of really, really frenetic. Basquiat mixed graffiti styles from the 1970s with modern art, kind of. and nobody had ever really done that. It was this young urban thing, but he did a really good job of it. And Warhol and him became good friends, and like really good friends, and they did work together. And then Warhol died of pneumonia. I don't think it's known. I think that he didn't have AIDS. He was just scared to go to hospitals. And Basquiat did get AIDS, and he died a few years after. And so, like, they both died within a few years of each other in the 1980s. But the point is that so Warhol was totally gay. Let's see here. Let me screen share this. So Warhol was completely gay, and this is Basquiat. Basquiat was more of an actual painter, right? Warhol, he actually wasn't good at painting. He was a visual artist that almost never painted, and he was trying to argue that you could be a visual artist and only copy things, only steal, stencils that are made from, reproductions of other people's things, and just slightly alter them, or, and it's still art. And that was his philosophy as an artist. And then he got all these other people to make his work for him and still managed to get most of the credit for it. Well, Basquiat was more of a painter, and he was at least definitely mostly very strongly bisexual, maybe more homosexual. And he did work like this. And this was in the 1980s. And so you can see how it's like this mix of graffiti and modern art. And that had never existed. Like 1980s, people looked at this and they were like, oh, this is so edgy. Oh my God, I have to have this for my gallery. Oh my God. And so like he's remembered as like one of the greats of modern art, even though he died very young. He probably died in his 20s. So that's what gay culture was kind of like in the 1980s. The Reagan era was not super pro-gay, except for it wasn't really that anti-gay. Like, people try to like act like it was because they didn't do a whole lot about the AIDS crisis. But if you go through pop culture, there's a lot of gay guys in it. Like, you can find them. It's not impossible to find them, even in like silly movies and stuff. And there was like the New York and LA gay hipsters and stuff in the 80s, like there are now. They were all dying, and people didn't really know what to do. Like, people are always saying like, oh, Reagan didn't say the word AIDS out loud. They didn't talk about it. And like, yeah, I think somebody should write a history book of like how exactly the Reagan administration really handled AIDS and the AIDS crisis, and like how exactly the activism unfolded, because all you ever hear is these horror stories from old gay Democrats who are, like, oh, the Democrats were trying to get it, in Congress. People cared in Congress, and the lesbians had to take care of us, and Reagan didn't care. But it's like the worst they can ever come up with is that Reagan didn't acknowledge it, and then Nancy Reagan said some kind of mean things. But like, you'd have to know why they felt the way that they did, and what it were to and I'm not trying to defend Reagan on this issue. That's not my point at all. I'm just saying that nobody's written a balanced history book about it. Like, nobody has actually tried to tell both sides of the story properly. So by the end of the 80s, the LGBT stuff had started, and there was an actual movement of pride festivals and stuff, largely due to AIDS. That's why let's look at Pride 1980s. Let's look at this, yeah. Because it was largely that people were dying, and they figured they needed to do something about it. So they started having these rallies just to show visibility, and then it became more of a business and industry during the 90s. Is when it really started. And then by the end of the 90s, you know, we had people like Madonna who were like super, super gigantic. She wasn't even like the fag hag. She was like the fag goddess is what you would call her. And let's look at like some old Madonna pictures from the, because you're too young to even remember this. You probably weren't even alive. Madonna with gay guys, blonde ambition, because she had a bunch of gay dancers and stuff that she would work with. Like,
wow.
here, like look at those guys. And I think all of those guys were gay. I don't think that she works with straight guy dancers. One of them was a closet case. They made a whole movie about that tour, the Blonde Ambition tour. And it seemed pretty obvious that he was just in the closet was a thing. But I think all the other guys were open homosexuals. Let's see. I mean, look at this shit.
Yeah, that's what you think, guys. Oh, yeah.
And that must be the guy.
So my question is, do you think right now with the current Democratic Party is because of all the Democratic Party have done for the gay community, when you guys quote
wait, let me finish talking about history though, because so this is the 90s. We had people like Madonna. Madonna was huge. There was also Janet Jackson. She worked with a lot of gay guys. Madonna was a little bit more visible in the way that like everybody knew that all the guys around her were gay, but Janet Jackson too. And I would say Janet Jackson was more of a staple in like the black gay community. And if you were to look at her videos, you look closely, you probably start to realize that's a bunch of gay guys too, but maybe not so obviously as Madonna. And then by the end of the 90s, you had the rave scene, which, you know, in the UK started in like 1990 or I think 1989. But by the end of the 90s, it was everywhere in the United States. And the rave scene was heavily gay. Let me look at some 90s ravers. I was a 90s raver. I started going out to raves in 1997. And I don't know if a lot of these guys, see, it was hard to tell with the ravers if they were gay or straight. Because, I mean, just look at these people. Like, how could you tell? And a lot of them, they would be taking ecstasy and stuff. And when you're on ecstasy, you can't get, like, sexually aroused anyhow. So it's like, it's hard to even, like, but you like cuddling with people. It's weird. So,
what drugs do to you? You just want to hold things.
So, that's what the 90s were like. So it was very, very, I made a video called Trans Trenders and Bistratuals. And bistratual people in the 90s were largely ravers, like these kind of people. And they were everywhere. Ravers were everywhere. They would have raves in the suburbs, you know?
Explain. What is bisexual? What is that? Say it one
more time. Bistratual.
Bistratual. What is that?
That's somebody who was pretending to be bisexual, but they were really straight.
Wow. And
they were telling people that they were bi just because it was kind of trendy if you were hanging out with these kind of people. Like if you were hanging out with, you know, I don't know about those guys. Those guys look kind of like they'd be thugs in everyday life. But like these people, like the guys on the left are obviously gay, you know, like maybe not so much the guy on the far right. So yeah, you go to enough of these parties and you're around enough of these people and you realize it's cool to tell people that you're bisexual, but it turns out that a lot of people were lying. And that's what it was like by the end of last decade. Well, then the Bush years came along and Eminem became popular, and it became very popular to hate on gay people because I think really it was like when rave culture died, everybody just got sick of ravers, and there was all sorts of really, really tacky gay guys. Like gay guys were like these like tacky, methed out, like guys who were just on meth all the time. And let's look at a gay circuit party, gay 90s circuit part. So there was these are like these big gay raves where everybody was on meth. This looks like a more recent one, but this crap was so. Yeah, this was what they used to be like. I think that this was in the heyday in the '90s when it was like a big deal to go to these, and it was like some guys actually thought that this was cool somehow for some reason, and I guess they'd fly from all over the country, maybe even the world, and they'd do meth all weekend, go to these things, and that was kind of, and so by the end of the '90s and then the early 2000s, there was a number of guys that were still doing this stuff and still going to raves, but everybody else started thinking it wasn't cool. And so if you were involved in rave culture or circuit culture, you're probably just really into the drugs, and everybody else thought that you were really not cool. So a lot of gay guys departed from it. I stopped doing raves in 2003, even though I was a DJ. I was DJing rave music, but I stopped going to them entirely by 2005, but mostly by 2003. And it's so silly. That's Chicago.
Huh.
What I remember is that like people just had sort of like this bad impression of what gay guys were like, and I think it's because they largely knew them from the rave scene and stuff. Like they had only really met gay guys at these clubs, and gay guys were always, I don't know, they were like that guy, you know, like, and so the attitude last decade was actually very hostile towards gay guys, and lots of straight people thought gay guys were stupid and, you know, did drugs all the time and weren't actually good at doing anything, because there was very few gay DJs. I was one of the only good ones that actually DJ'd at parties with straight people, and people said that's gay as an insult all the time, and it was totally fine to make gay jokes. And Bush started talking about how he was going to constitutionally make sure that gay marriage was never legal in the Constitution. So that was how last decade was going. And then by mid last decade into late last decade, a new gay underworld happened, and it would be like the Vice magazine type parties, like you know Gavin. So
Yeah.
Vice Vice's worst party ever 05. I think that this is when, or was it 04? Oh wait, is this it? This might be the party. So there was a party called the worst party ever. Vice magazine. They had a party called the worst party ever, and I think it was in 2005. Let's look at Vice magazine do's and don'ts from. Okay.
That's all Gavin right there.
Yeah. Oh, I remember. Do's and I knew some of the party photographers. Like there was this guy called the Cobra Snake, who anytime I would be at a party, that guy would always make sure to take a picture of me. And so this pretty sure that's a don't. Oh, that's a do. Oh, how fashion has changed. So let's see parties like these. This is what we had by mid last decade, and you would go to a party like that. It was not the same as the ravers. People were really stuck up. Like everybody was really competitive and thought that they were cooler than each other and thought that they were smarter than each other and thought that they had better fashion than each other. But they still have a lot of fun around each other. And you'd go to a certain party. Let's find another one. Come on, where's another party photo? Here, let me see. Let me look up Cobra Snake. Cobra Snake. Oh, come on. 2006. Okay, so parties like this shit. Oh, this must be in like Japan or something though. Why is it all in Japan? He must have been flown over there a lot. Um,
Gavin?
no, okay, so parties, I guess, kind of like this. Uh, yeah, parties with girls like this at them. You would go to last decade, and all these girls would be like that, and they'd think that they're really, really cool and really smart. And there's lots of cocaine around. And the thing is that a lot of these parties, about 25% of the crowd would be gay guys at them. And then a few lesbians would go to these, but they'd be like fashionable, thin, good looking, like L word lesbians. And they would go to these parties. And from that, like, and there was like this gay scene that was like this, like crystal meth raver, but most gay, like more and more gay guys were starting to get away from that and starting to go to parties like these and be around more straight people. And that's kind of what things were like. Yeah, like, yeah, you can, I would go to parties with girls like this and with dudes like that all the time. And there would be gay guys there. Not a whole bunch, but like enough, you know? Then after a while, the gay guys decided to sort of split off again from the straight people and have more and more gay parties. And there was like gay punk rock parties and like gay indie hip hop electronic parties that they play the same type of music. Like this, if you were at this party, it would be a mix of electronic hipster music like electro, indie hip hop like MIA, and then bands like LCD Sound System and stuff, you know, like that type of hipster band. And like it would be a mix, and gay guys started throwing parties with the same type of music. And then that turned into like the queer scene, and the queer scene started developing late last decade. By like 2008 or so, it was really strong, and it started to be more and more mixed. And it was lesbian, gay guy. It would be mostly gay guys probably, and then lesbians, and then trans people. And then early into this decade, there started to be more and more trans trenders and that kind of a thing. And then also straight people were showing up and calling themselves trans. And eventually things got to be where they are today, where it's like gay guys are taken off largely, and most gay guys don't even go out at the moment because there's nowhere to go for them. And that's where we should talk about the current times. And let me close that window. And I gotta look at the chat to see if anyone has given me super chats, because that was cool. So what?
Yeah, I guess it's time for me to question. I have tons. So, because one thing I've noticed, a lot of straight females, it seems like a lot of lesbian, a lot of straight females, they purposely go to gay clubs. Mm-hmm. And they go on Facebook, and this is anecdotal, but it's something I see a lot. What females and lesbians have go to strip clubs, and and that's kind of like a straight man area or safe zone or safe space. Mm-hmm. And they be in there and they straight, and they be in there with strip clubs and make men feel uncomfortable. And then they also go to gay clubs. Like this is a very big thing of going to gay male clubs and then kind of ruin the fun.
Yeah, well, it's annoying too, because it's like, I don't like saying that straight girls ruin the fun of gay clubs. Certain like a few straight girls who don't know how to behave certainly can, you know, like if they act like gay guys are this novelty and they like want to, you know, touch all of us, and you know, are like, oh my god, my best friend is gay. It's like, whatever, girl, you know. But mostly they don't really act like that. However, if half or more of the bar is like straight girls, then yeah, it's not, because it's not even a gay bar anymore, you know, and that's a problem. So
no, I've been in strip clubs where like, let's have a bachelorette party at the gay bar. I mean, at a strip club, and then you're there, you know, with a bunch of other guys, and then you see a bunch of females walk in, like shit. Because when you go to the strip club, you're not respectful, and then because they're strippers, strippers are strippers. So you treat a stripper like a stripper, but when you see like actual females, we're like, oh shit, I actually respect these chicks. I can't be just a horn dog. it kind of throw off the whole scene because been cases like the Proud Boys. We went to Vegas and people was mad that we didn't invite females. Like
where? Where to Vegas?
Yeah, the Proud Boys went to Vegas. It was like 300 Proud Boys in Vegas, which you should totally go next year. And
maybe.
And people got mad, like really, really mad. A whole lot of females got mad at us.
You're at like strip clubs.
It was everywhere. It was absolutely everywhere.
Just females are trying to have a problem with you because you had an event for dudes.
Yeah, we had an event for dudes, and they was.
What did you tell them? You say, yeah, make me a sandwich.
Like, well, I got suspended for this one female where I actually, because I got suspended for 30 days where I called some horrible things. I a lot of Arby's reference.
Arby's reference. I don't know what that means.
Can you guess roast beef sandwich?
Oh, okay.
A lot of horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seemed like it's a lot of females who are encroaching in spaces that in the past was mostly predominantly male.
Mm-hmm.
It's from I know you, and like I say, also I want to ask you: do you think that even right now that the reason why lesbians and also the Democratic Party why they lash out so harshly to gay males is they feel like, hey, we protected you for all these years. We own you. We own your votes. If you step out of line, we did all these things for you. So it wasn't like almost like they were looking for equality or they were looking for your back. Is they was trying to buy favors from the gay community or really the gay male community.
Well, I would say that the Democratic Party has done that. And the Democratic Party has, as we learned with the Kavanaugh hearings, thank God that he was appointed. Thank God.
I'm drinking. I've been drinking since the hearing.
I bought alcohol last night, expecting to drink more than I did, and I have a little bit more today, so I'm just drinking some.
Since this chat, I'm already a beer in, another beer in. I was already a couple beers in before I hopped on the string, and I finished just a beer just now.
So, okay, the Democratic Party has largely become the party of women, but not even women, a certain type of woman. Is what I would say.
Ones, the crazy, absolute bad shit. The cat women. Because I was talking to Liberal Hammer yesterday. Like, it's these females who are these hardcore feminists who, like, women, they need to go out and work, and then their ovaries shrinks up, and they still have the maternal instinct to take care of things.
Oh yeah, you told me that. Yeah.
So they get 8 cats to take care of the cats. These are my babies right here, and then they go out and berate males for their problems, like were they just angry because they're
supposed to be berating their children.
Yes, that's what my mother does it to me all the time when she shames me, like, you don't love me no more, and then I gotta drive 40 minutes into town to see my mother.
Yeah, so okay, it's a specific type of female. And one of the things, I actually made this in my video yesterday, that I really think motivates a lot of the Democratic women. I really think that this has to be motivating a lot of the Democratic women, like the hardcore, because, it turns out that, like, they don't really care about all that many issues, but they are really passionate about abortion access. They want to be able to have their abortions, and they want to be able to feel all right about having their abortions. They want to, be encouraged. They want to shout their abortions. They want to blah, 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 blah. And I really think that comes from overcompensation. That what they have to be doing is, this has to be women who have had abortions in the past, and they don't want to feel guilty about it. And the thing is that abortion is, if you have an abortion as a woman, but you will biologically feel deeply, deeply guilty. You biologically feel the life being ripped from your body, and you feel instinctually the loss of your child. And I imagine more so if the longer you get aborted, but it's a well-known thing, and any woman can look this up. Do research into the depression that comes soon after having an abortion. That's actually a very, very well-known biological thing in certain scientific communities. But of course, feminists have done everything they can to make that information hard to find. So
yeah, they do. And this is a little known secret. Do you know that Roe? They're going to overturn Roe v. Wade. Roe was extremely pro-life after the hearing when she had her abortion, and she absolutely regretted it, and she spent all her life afterwards fighting against Roe v. Wade.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So
Roe was a very, very, very large pro-life activist afterwards because she regretted the abortion.
yeah. So that makes sense. That makes sense. So these are there's a particular fanatic set of hardcore Democratic voters who, what they're doing is, there's a term for this in psychology called psychological transference, where if you feel a deep trauma, such as, physical symptoms of feeling postpartum depression, like losing the child within you, and also feeling as if you're the one who is responsible for taking that life, which you physically feel. It's not like you can just pretend like it didn't happen. You actually feel it for weeks, if not maybe even months in some cases. And then you can, one of the things that people do to cope with trauma as a psychological mechanism is they transfer one feeling into another feeling. And so they could transfer that grief, that shame, that guilt that they felt from having an abortion into hardcore abortion activism, saying, like, pretending that everything is fine, that more women should have abortions, but when really they're just overcompensating for the fact that they feel guilty about having an abortion. And I think that a lot of the guys who get into some of this, like, abortion rights stuff, they've had abortions too, and they know girls that are like this, and they've agreed to have abortions with the guy or with the girl. So that's just sort of my feeling about what a number of them are like. And with gay men and women and lesbians, I think that when women start acting like that, they are already defying their own maternal instincts. They are already going against how they, if they have to suppress this information about how it actually feels to have an abortion, that something's wrong. You know that they are already suppressing their own real feelings, and they are doing that by going on the offense of anybody that would remind them of their own real feelings. So, like, any woman who's pro-life, who's like a pro-life woman who's trying to tell them, hey, by the time your baby is however many weeks old, it already has a heartbeat and blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, when they hear that woman makes them really, really angry. And then they want to, like, persecute that woman. And they get in this mode of attacking people in that kind of way. And here's the strange thing about female nature. According to, I don't want to say I'm an expert on this. I like to speak about things that I have personally done some amount of research, or I at least know people that this has happened to explicitly. What I will say is that this is something that I have noticed throughout my life, which is that people in general have a tendency to respect people who will put their foot down and stand up for themselves. And that goes for men and women, right? So yeah. if a man or a woman is, trying to push you really far, and you say, hey, you can't do this anymore, then you are best to stand up for yourself, because they'll actually end up treating you better for that. And I've had that experience. I've had that exact experience with men and with women. But one of the things is that we have been conditioned by feminist teaching to not stand up to women, right? Like we do it to men. Like we will tell a man to back down, you know, and don't try me again, you know. Like we all will do that. Well, not all of us, but I will, you know. And I've had good results for that. But a lot of the time, women are not. They have no idea that men aren't going to just forever put up with their crap. But the thing is that they don't respect the people who don't put up who don't put up a fight. Nobody does.
Yeah,
And
I just wanted to say this one article where it say was an article where this feminist was complaining that where she was complaining that Trump supporters was fucking her better than Democrats. It's like they are more aggressive, they are more forceful, they can actually make me come. And it's kind of funny. And what you're saying right now is kind of crazy because every single feminist I ask what is wrong with housewife or females who want to be housewives, they say they put part of the patriarchy. They almost had this guttural hatred for females who have children, who are happy, who are at the house, take care of the household, and they got a male who are over the household. Some seem like a little bit of hatred, almost a little bit of jealousy, to be honest with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you should tell them, hey, you should maybe try the patriarchy. It'll make you come.
I'm the same. if Trump supporters are doing better, maybe something wrong with you beta cocks.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys, they just so, I don't know, they're just weird. They're weird guys.
No, and you can't tell that they are not going to be good in bed. You could tell. So
I tried it one day to be a feminist in bed, and my girl got really angry at me. Well, like, can I touch you here? Can I grab you here? Is it okay for me to answer? And she got really pissed. Versus me being an asshole and just kind of like waking her up to have sex and then immediately going back to sleep.
Yeah, I actually one time in San Francisco back.
You have a super chat, by the way.
Yeah, I see it. Actually, I just want to finish this thought about women and aggressive men and guys who will put up a fight and everything. The thing about that is like MGTOWs talk about this notion that women they have an actual term for it, which is that like when you go out to dinner with a girl, she'll try to eat at your food, but like if you order an appetizer, she'll try to eat the appetizer. Yeah. And you could say that you would want to order an appetizer, and she'll say that she doesn't want, like, even if you're paying, like even if you're willing to pay for her appetizer, she won't get one, but she'll still try to eat yours. And they have an actual term for that, and it's something like picking. I don't know if it's henpecking. Yeah, maybe, but I don't know if it's the same one. Because I don't know if henpecking really. I don't know exactly what henpecking means, but they're saying
henpecking is just a fancy way to say nagging.
Yeah, I think it's different. This is a little bit more of seeing how far, how much they can get away with on your watch, and women will, if they can get away with a lot from a guy, they can, and they will, like a lot of the time, and depending on what their priorities are. But ultimately, they aren't even all that interested in having sex with guys who are like that.
No, not really.
But they'll certainly go out to a few dinners with him, maybe a few, more than a few, and get paid for. If he looks good on paper, and he might be he might end up being the according to MGTOW's terminology, the cuck that will be taking him out, and she'll be introducing the mom to and having sex with on occasion while they're having sex, while she's having sex with other guys, like more alpha guys that she's actually attracted to. And that definitely makes sense to me, because I've known girls that are like that. Like I have known girls who do that. And what I think is sort of going on is that for the last number of years, especially, the females have gotten emboldened because of feminism's power that happened, you know, starting early this decade. Feminism got so powerful that all the straight guys became scared of women in like leftist areas. They were terrified of upsetting women. Well, women start searching, maybe instinctively, for guys that are going to put up a fight because that's more exciting to them. And so then they decided that they wanted to, you know, they just had to take over video games. Like maybe they were searching, maybe they wanted gamers to put up a fight. You know what I mean? And maybe they wanted gay men to put up a fight. Maybe that was part of the whole thing. Like maybe it was part of this phenomenon of female nature, of seeing how far they can push men before men fight back. And maybe that's a large portion of it.
The crazy thing right now, you see a lot of feminists are on a warpath for gamers, and every chance they get, they mention Gamergate because it was something that where a bunch of men fought back, and at the end of the day, the gaming community blew up after Gamergate.
Yeah. I mean, I got into gaming after Gamergate, and now I'm glad that I did. And I play Overwatch. Overwatch is weird because it's like it's a dude ass game in terms of gameplay. Ultimately, kinda, because it's a violent first person shooter for the most part. I mean, you got the Reinhardts and Moiras who don't shoot, but they, you know, Moira sucks your soul when Reinhardt hits you with a hammer. But for the most part, it's a first person shooter. But
I play Overwatch a lot too.
Yeah, I know that you know it, and you know it's but it's funny about it. It's kind of cartoony, so it's not a super realistic. Because I don't like the super realistic games because it feels like you're in war. But the thing about that game is that it's sort of marketed to be for women because it has lots of female characters and it's a team game and it has healers and stuff. And some of the characters are way easier to play than others. Like it's way easier to play as Orisa, you know, the big, just in case the audience doesn't know, there's this big robot tank that drops a shield on the ground and all you got to do is stand behind the shield to make sure the shield stays up and shoot at people from behind the shield. As compared to like Tracer, Genji, or Sombra, where the whole point of those characters is that they're highly mobile and really fast and can zip around or climb up walls. Or Sombra, she can turn invisible and hack people from beneath their lines. And if it's really dangerous to play those characters, but if you're really, really good at it, it's more important. So, you know, females can play as a character that's not so hard to play, like one of the healers or one of these tanks like Orisa, and then they can communicate with the guys who are really, really good at the games are more likely to play as Tracer, Genji, Sombra. It's very few females you're going to find that are particularly good at like Genji, Sombra, Tracer. I know one girl who is very good at Sombra, but only one. And I know a girl who's good at Zenyatta who's really hard to play, but only one. And but other than that, and you know that it's a weird mix where, you know, if there was ever something successful that the feminists maybe accomplished with Gamergate, like if Overwatch came largely as I think it had been in development for a while, but if it was a game that was trying to be more feminist, it was one that was sort of successful in the way that it managed to get some girls interested in video games, but still be a good game. And still, it works like that. And I think that that's really cool about it because I don't have a problem with female characters in games and more women wanting to play in games. When I play games, I am not going to be sexist at all. If, you know, like if there's a girl on the team, good. If you're good, then even better. You're my friend and let's play. So I'm going to read out the super chat and then you can ask me another question. So it says, hey, Prince, as a first timer, I was wondering if there is any recommendations for gay bars in Minneapolis. I have only been to Minneapolis once, and I went to the Eagle there. Mm-hmm. The Eagle is a chain, and it tends to be a leather bar, but that was like 12 years ago that I went there. Maybe not 12, maybe more like 10. And it 9 years ago. And I remember not even really liking it that much. So I honestly can't give you a great recommendation because bars can change a lot. And honestly, I don't even have a recommendation for a gay bar in San Francisco Actually, I would have for one in San Francisco probably. I'd have to go back and see, but I wouldn't have a recommendation for one in New York or for one in Seattle. That's how bad things are right now in terms of gay bar land. Just so you know, God Howard. Sorry. So,
well, let me ask you questions. So, with all of that, do you what today seems? Do you think that it's going to be a push where gay men would regain their space again, whereas they're going to be more selective of who they let in their clubs, where you have to be a gay male? Where it will go back. Like, it's just one saying. What I said to Liberal Hammer yesterday: history doesn't repeat itself; it rhymes.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So in the past, gay men had to find their space. We think gay men will find their space again. I know you started this thing where is
GGTOW.
GGTOW. Well, gays going their own ways, where like we need our own space again, where we can just meet a bunch of hot guys and party and do blow and drink and have our sexual expertise. I'm butchering this word because I'm pretty fucking drunk right now. You can't tell.
Yeah, that's fine.
Escapades. There we go.
Escapades. Yeah.
Do you think that will happen again? Because it seemed like even with,
I do. Yeah, I absolutely do. Gay guys will talk about. They're like, "Oh, I'll just hang out with straight people. Most of my friends are straight guys." It's like, okay, yeah, give that about a year and a half. See how. Get back to me after a year and a half. You'll get sick of it. I mean, I did that on YouTube. I and started playing video games, and and honestly, everything was cool for a while, and then I quit drinking, and then I stopped being so social, and then that whole crazy blood sports thing happened, which was just a huge mess, and everybody was fighting with each other,
we call that one. You know that, right?
Yeah, and like all these like former friends, like we were like hating each other, and like certain specific people were like just lying about people that were like. Like a real friend of mine, Cognitive Thought, like would not shut up and like just kept lying about me. And it was a shame. And it made me, and what was funny about it was, those guys, the people who were the bad actors in the blood sports crowd, the ones who like wouldn't stop lying, they, because of the fact that I was involved, like I was one of the sort of the key smaller channels that was involved in the drama, because I was good at, I was able to give Wizard of Cause a testimony that saying he was innocent. And ever since then, they wanted to discredit me as a YouTuber. And so they tried really desperately to discredit me and come up with a way of calling me a liar and saying that I was maybe a doxer or I was friends with doxers or, some crap like that. It didn't work. They had nothing. They could not, I didn't lie about anything. It was very clear. Nobody thought that I was lying about anything. Nobody thought that I was a doxer. Nobody thought that I cared about, so instead they just settled on gay jokes. And then they started making fun of me because I had said in this one video, I'm a man now. And it was ultimately just a gay joke because the only reason they thought it was funny was because I said that and I talk like a gay guy. And it's like, oh, yeah, well, I'm also named Prince of Queens, so I don't see why that's funny because I kind of come right out and say it. And then they also would call me Prince of Paws, which is a Prince of Paws, like HIV positive is where that comes from. And so like when that happened, it was kind of like I was already not really hanging out on the YouTube scene. I wasn't really going on live streams. And then all these people kind of turned on each other and were fighting anyway. And then sure enough, they decided to start making fun of like one of their only, if not the only YouTube token gay guy that knew all the like skeptic crowd or whatever, and start literally attacking me for being gay. And it was like, could you imagine that? Like, imagine like if, Derek Blackman, some black guy, if they, if every time he was on a live stream or something, people were like, I don't want to use the N word on my channel. Like, but like everybody's like, oh, this N word again, this goddamn N word again. And that's all they would ever do. And it was like, if you were him, you would stop hanging out with any on any channel that happened with. Right. Like, it's like you don't. It's like if that's
it's kind of like talking behind your back. Like, come on, man, really? Like, you're not gonna set up for me? We're supposed to be friends?
yeah. Well, it's not even so much like. Well, yeah. No, the people who didn't the standing up for me thing was kind of a letdown. There was definitely people that were like, "Oh God, that's stupid," but they also hated these people anyway. But what it reminded me of was simply that, like, see, this is what can always happen when you're like the token gay guy. Like, when you are the only gay guy around, at any moment, people could decide to make fun of you simply for being gay. And if there's no other gay guys around, then some people will think that some people will just let them get away with it. You know, some people will be like, "Oh yeah, he is gay, huh?" And I was like, "Ah, man, this is dumb. This is why I do hang out with gay guys all the time." And so it was right around that time when I started the gay triarchy streams with some other gay guys, and I do that more than anything else at this point. And it's a shame because, you know, like, I'm still friends with a number of these other YouTubers, and sometimes I show up and hang out, try to talk to them, but almost reliably, like, even still, even though this was like a long time ago, you know, this was like well over 6 months ago, that stupid, like, "I'm a man now" or "Prince of Pawns," like, they're just gay jokes that were not even funny at the time. You know, anyone who thought that those were funny jokes is just completely moronic more than anything, because they're not funny jokes. And like, I'll show up in one of my friends, you know, chats or something like that, and some of their fans are saying it, and it's just like, you know, that's kind of a shame, because I was here to see my friend's live stream, and this makes me not want to come around. And if that friend understood that you guys were acting like that, I don't know if he'd be super happy about that. But you know, it just reminds me why I do hang out with gay guys. And I think that if gay guys hang out only with straight people, and granted, I'm not saying that that type of crap happens, but I am saying that if you're the only gay guy who hangs out with straight people, like, you got to at least have a few other gay guys to remind the straight people that, like, you aren't a pet or like a zoo animal that they get to just sort of, like, you know, treat as if you're this like alien species, and that they can sort of do whatever they want with you because, you know, you don't have any other people like you. No, that's not true. You can go find other gay guys, and eventually gay guys always will, ultimately. And so, yeah, I do think that if gay guys are thinking that they can hang out with only straight people, give it a while, and then you'll remember why you hang out with gay people at all. And it's really frustrating to hang out with gay people, because you can't, if you go to quote unquote gay spaces, well, first of all, they aren't really gay spaces. Women control them. And then second of all, the gay males who are there are half of them are just as bad. You know, like, they are full on true believer feminists that will talk about patriarchy and crap. But at the same time, this all happened before. By the end of the 90s, lesbians ruled the LGBT scene. And I remember it. I remember, like, any queer club that you would go to for like a high school or a college, it was run by a lesbian every single time. Every single time. And gay guys who were cool just thought it wasn't cool. And eventually the cool gay guys start their own things. And it's kind of like what you said before. We only invite other gay guys. It's not that we're saying, like, women and straight people aren't allowed. It's just that they won't necessarily be invited, you know, like, and that's how you make a good gay party. It's that something that other people don't really know about, that you just invite a bunch of cool gay guys to. And I think that there will be that very soon.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. Maybe Chadwick should make I don't know. Chadwick's got money. He should make a gay bar where it's just like, you have to be gay. Like, there's no women allowed. Because even one thing about the Proud Boys.
Wait, let's get back to that. Do you want to take a bathroom break?
No, I'm perfectly fine.
Okay, so I gotta go to the bathroom. And I'll be back in 1 second. Okay.
All right, and I can barely move because I'm full of alcohol.
Okay.
I have Chadwick, not Chadwick. I have Prince of Queen channel. Ha ha ha. I'm drinking. I'm drinking because of trying to kind of. I had it earlier. I keep butchering his name. Brett Kanovich. I can't say his name, but I'm drinking because of Countless Yours Ride. Let it burn. Because they keep trying to butcher this man because they say like, oh, this guy's a blackout drunk, and we have to believe all women and all that crap. So like, you know what? Fuck that shit. I'm gonna drink a beer. I like beer. Beer is awesome. And I've never been in a time where I drink beer and I try to rape people. Have I tried to have sex with people while I was drunk? Yes, but rape is very far. And the left was so angry that they didn't get the guy. He came back clean. And I saw this funny video where it's like the left called it FBI investigation, and they got it, and then afterwards it wasn't enough, and it's such bullshit. Like, we got the investigation, and none of them, after getting information, voted for the guy. Hey Prince, you back? Pretty sure you.
I am back. So, what were we talking
about? No, of gays going their own way, and it's one thing where I see more and more. I had this funny picture where I didn't send it to you, where it was a gay guy and a lesbian, and then the gay guy like, you know what? I don't think Donald Trump is that bad, and then the lesbian like, and then he rips away his victim card, and he's like, oh. And I think what's going to happen is like, where they keep pushing, trying to force gays to a certain ideology, where they're just like, you know what, screw this, I'm just going to hang out with other gays because you guys have been in our space for a long time, but you guys was just okay for us to have a certain point of views, a certain, it was okay for how he was in the past when it was more docile, but we're more vocal. Now is a problem.
Well, I think it's also just that there was a period when the lesbians and bisexual and straight girls, they didn't think that they hadn't picked at straight men into feeling like they had conquered straight men. And so when they still felt like they were going into gay spaces to retreat from straight men when they didn't want to be around straight men, that's what it used to be like. Like, you used to go to a gay bar and there'd be some girls there and they'd be like, I like hanging out with the gay boys because I don't like getting my ass grabbed when I'm drinking all the time. And it's like, okay, cool, I can respect that. Whereas now it's like, I go to the gay bar and none of you homos better touch me because that is sexual assault. And it's like, I don't want to touch you. You know, like, what are you talking about? And,
yes. Even right now, somebody asked me to say, how many girlfriends do you have? Like, I have family because I'm so afraid of social justice warriors where I'm like, I just don't want to have any friends who are a girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, there was a period in which, you know, eventually women in general picked on straight guys enough that straight guys surrendered and they just let themselves, by and large, the culture got kind of cucked. And then women started trying to do it to gay men too. And way too many gay guys let them get away with it. And I'm mad at them. And this is something I will say. Well, I've been a little bit drinking. I had a few beers in me. I'm just cracked open another one.
Crack a cold one with the boys.
So the Kevin Flowers 1989 says, as a gay man who's lived with straight guys as roommates, they have this rule: you can be gay, just can't act gay even if you're masculine. That's not entirely true. Depends on which type of straight guy. First of all, depends on which type of straight guy. If he's insecure, maybe a little bit more. Also, what type of gay guy you are. And here's the thing. If you are a bit of an alpha, and I don't mean an alpha for a gay guy. If you're an alpha guy, you are an alpha guy. And I have an alpha personality. Surprise, surprise. And
couldn't tell that.
when you talk to me and you get to know me, like there's certain things that I am, I'll make compromises about, and I'll admit that I'm bad at and whatever. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if we're going to talk about something I'm good at, you're going to need to respect me, or we are not going to talk. That's how it is. And the thing is that straight guys pick up on that. Straight guys care about that stuff maybe a little bit more than gay guys. Like, gay guys get pissed off at alphas in general a lot of the time. But the right type of straight guy, you go around them and you're a gay guy, and like I'm this weird combination of, I look really masculine in my presentation. You've seen pictures of me, like I'm a big hairy dude with like tattoos and stuff. But I sound super gay, and I have like a limp wrist mannerisms when I speak and stuff. But I also, I still have this like masculine alpha energy about me. And sometimes it confuses straight guys. Like they don't know what to make of me. And then they hang out with me long enough. And then I'm like, yeah, I was on a record label. And they're like, oh yeah, let's listen to your music. And they're like, oh, you made all of this? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, so you like wrote it? I'm like, no, I mean, I wrote, I produced, I sang, I recorded, I did literally everything. And then they're like, oh, huh. And then they start to respect me a little bit more. And then I'm like, yeah, you want to play video games? We can play some video games. And then I beat them at video games. And they start, having a little bit more of a respect for me. And then I get to act however I want. Because once you've established that, then they accept the fact that, sure, I talk like a gay guy. So what? They don't care. Like,
it's romantical at this point.
It's what?
It's bromantical. You establish a bromance.
Yeah. And then the straight guys are more likely. See, I was, how like Blair White will say that she's done more for the trans communities than most trans activists, because she gets messages from people all the time saying that it's been her that's opened their mind to the fact that transgender people can be sane or whatever. Well, me as an individual, I think that I opened a lot of straight guys, and when I say a lot, I mean thousands, because I knew a lot of people from being a DJ and doing music and stuff. I probably single-handedly opened thousands of straight guys' minds up to the notion that gay guys can be legit and competitive and good at stuff, like hard stuff. I actually, it's funny, I was just telling this story the other day. I had a fight with this guy, like a physical fight. It was set up at Burning Man in 2003. They have this thing called the Thunderdome. You ever seen Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at Burning Man, they have a Thunderdome. And it's pretty intense. They throw you in there, they put bungee cords in you, and they strap you in, and they give you these foam bats that it'll be like one of those plastic baseball bats, and then they put a little bit of foam around it, kind of like a beer koozie foam. Mm-hmm. So it's soft enough so that it's not like, breaking bones every hit, but people do get injured. Like, people break their hands, they break their fingers. If you hit somebody smack across the face right at the right angle, you would break the crap out of their nose with one of those things. Like one of those plastic bats with a beer koozie around it. You could break someone's nose with that. It's not like you can't. And so that's what it was. And I fought with this guy who was bigger than me. He's like taller than I am, and he had armor on. And I kicked the crap out of him. I could tell the whole story to you sometime. And the thing is that like hundreds of people saw that, including people from my camp, and it became this big kind of like legend. Because the thing is that I was in this Burning Man camp that was like 150 people or so, and he wanted to fight someone, and all the straight guys were scared of fighting him, and I was the only gay guy. And I was the only person that wasn't scared to fight him. And everybody thought that everyone wasn't sure what was going to happen, because it was like 2 or 3 days to the fight that we had set it up. We wanted to do it on a Friday. And so we had enough time to like talk a bunch of shit to each other and like wrestle a bit, and like kind of build it up. And people were like, I don't know. Prince seems like he's ready to fight him. It doesn't seem like Prince is scared of him, And so a number of people went and they saw, and I won. Like I definitely won that fight. I kicked the crap out of him. The entire third round of it, or the entire second round, I trapped him below me and wrapped my legs around his cables and just like beat the back of his head until they pulled us off each other. That was the entire second round. And so like these things like that happen, and it dramatically changes the way in which people will view gay guys. But gay guys they do have to learn to if they want to compete, they got to really do it. And a lot of gay guys don't really do it. Like a lot of gay guys are scared to compete with straight guys, and I think that that's silly.
No, I think because the thing about your channel, I came from a very, very religious family, and when I broke free from, because I was like an extreme Orthodox Jew, like I was worse than Ben Shapiro in terms of my religion, where a lot of my beliefs, where I was like I was a strict vegan, where God made us vegan in the beginning, so that's where we're gonna go. That's how strict we was. And like you, Blair White, Chadwick, Milo, and it's like, it really broke the mold, my mold. Like these seem like just regular old guys, just like other guys. And once you have the mindset, it's like, oh, these are just regular guys. They just like guys. There's nothing like. I can drink with these guys. I can hang out with these guys. I can party with these guys, and just be guys. And I think that's a big fear for feminists when straight guys and gay guys get together. Like, hey, you're a guy. I'm a guy. Let's go do guy shit and let's just hang out.
Yeah, you know what I think it is. Just real quick. Unless were you still talking?
No, that's the point I was making.
Yeah, well, here's what I think that's going on. I think that feminists feel more. They will always try to grab for more control. Like they're going to try to have more power, and they're going to have more power. And it's this like weird sort of, female thing that females in general just instinctually do. Try to see how much they can get away with each guy around them, and maybe most guys do that too. Maybe that's just a human thing, right? But females, and maybe straight guys do that to women. I don't really know. Like, I don't know because I'm not straight. I have no interest in seeing how much I can get away with women. That's not how I think of women, But females have this notion of like, they feel a little bit more secure if they can dominate all the men around them, and if all the men are scared to stand up to them and stuff. But if any of the straight guys stop putting up with their crap, then they just hate those guys, and they try to call them misogynists and whatever. And then they get really, but then they're like, well, but the gay guys don't hang out with those guys. Because if those guys hate me, they also hate gay guys. So there, because those guys are probably just jerks, and they're probably mean to the gay guys. But when it turns out that those guys are really big fans of Milo or something, then they get real nervous, and then because then it's like, so wait, the same guys that are not putting up with my crap are also making friends with other gay guys who aren't putting up with my crap. Now what do we do?
The funny thing. It was I met this one alt-right guy, and he was making fun of Milo, and he was shocked that the right, like everybody at this event, like rejected his homophobia. Like, hey, we like Milo, we love Milo. Like if he likes having sex with gay black guys, that's his right to do that shit. And this alt-right guy, he got so offended. Like he was like confused. He was shocked.
When was that?
It was like a couple of months ago. And he was just so confused because we stood up for Milo. This is the whole entire right was like, no, it's between you and between Milo and you, we're gonna pick Milo because you don't like Milo because he's gay, and that's not a good enough reason not to like a person. And he was really took him back, like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I like to call most of the alt-right. There's very few people actually believe in the alt-right, and so much so that I like to call it the alt-psych, because I don't even think that most of them are for real. I think that a lot of them are just completely like they're doing it for some other weird reason, and then they give it up, like baked Alaska or whatever. But
he wanted to go back to society, like with the alt-right. It's such a fringe movement where.
Well, and doesn't baked Alaska look like he's Jewish?
Have you seen JF new girlfriend?
No.
I posted. I'm seeing this link right now in his chat. So JF got a new girlfriend where she looks Jewish. Like got the olive skin, curly hair, got the stereotypically merchant nose. And I say the alt-right summed up in one picture of Jay like it was this one live stream like my girlfriend's like I can't do this accent because I'm too drunk. Like
my girlfriend, my girlfriend. I can't do it either.
She got a nose injuries and she's Anglo, but she bruised her nose and so it's kind of solo right now. I found it. I can't do his accent because of.
Yeah, send it to me on Twitter. I don't think you can send.
I was gonna do it in the chat, our personal chat.
There's like an alt-right person in the chat. That's funny.
Oh, really? Yes.
Yeah. It's funny that there's whatever. I don't believe you. You're the alt-psych. Anyhow,
no, it's one of those weird things where the right became more not progressive, but they like we don't, because I think with right now with the radical left is when they start doing the Z's, the Zers, the 72 genders, it's like the right were like, can you just be like just like a regular gay? Like it was like I know that a lot of the right just long for the days like, are you just gay? Like, yeah, I'm just gay. Like, all right, thank God. Like all that 72 gender bullshit. If you're just regularly gay, I understand just regular gay. Like we know what you do. These guys over here, they wear the furries, the I'm non-binary, transgender males, like all that crazy stuff. Like the right, it's so fucking confusing. I don't give a shit anymore. Like you guys have pushed the envelope so far. Like we force we just. It's kind of like with the Family Guy episodes when Glenn's father came out as transgender. Like, can you just be regular? Just gay?
Well, the thing is, like, I don't think that most. I think that ultimately, once people become comfortable with a certain thing and they realize that like it by itself doesn't necessarily threaten humanity. And like, okay, so like I'll be the first, like I was, and I'm not saying I came to this conclusion in adult life. No, I have always been this way. I have always thought that like the guys who go to pride parades in like jock straps and, get tied up and get whipped up in public, with kids around and crap. Like I have always had a problem with that. Like I was like, why you gotta do that? Like I don't care if you are into that stuff, and like I will certainly go to a bar where there's guys walking around in jock straps and everything, but like put your clothes on when you leave, like that's always been my attitude, and I've always been like I don't see why we should encourage this type of behavior around kids. Like I've been at pride events in my 20s, and there was children around. Like there was this in San Francisco, they had this thing called the Fairy Freedom Village that was all like guys that were kind of like that, you know, not like all so bad, but you know, but definitely weird, maybe some nudity even. And then there was like small children in there, you know, like 6-year-olds in there. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't know if this is cool. And I remember even at the time, this guy that I was friends with was like, don't say that. You're a Republican. You're acting like a Republican. And I'm like, what? Like, you know, like what? Like I can't even criticize. So that was always the thing. But like, I think that when it gets to a certain point and people are used to homosexuals and they realize that like not all homosexuals are like that, and there's plenty of nice guys who aren't you know, actually like that, like, and then they become accepting and they don't really care, but they don't necessarily want people to be trans, or they don't want them to be dressing up as dogs. They don't want them to be like doing all this like freaky stuff, you know. I'm not saying that trans is necessarily freaky, but if somebody's trying to be like non-binary and like be a long blue haired with a beard wearing a mini skirt, they probably don't want them being like that, you know, trying to use the women's restroom. So yeah. I don't think that the right really cares. But it might take them a little bit longer to get used to something, whereas the left seems to like things just because they are different.
Yeah, and it like with I 100% agree, but with the right, it's really an evolution where something I'm really fucking ecstatic. I was in Vegas talking to one of my boys. Like, I'm so fucking happy the right largely have became anti-war, or a lot of the large portion of the right. So this type of all this useless war. Well, I know a lot of people who voted for Trump because he wasn't against. He was against useless wars, and I'm against useless wars. And it's one of those things where I find it's really fucking great, because it's an evolution of the Republican Party, and I hope it continues going this way, because with the Democratic Party is being ran by women, and it's being ran to the ground. Is being ran with emotions. That's what I'm looking at. It's very emotional. It's guttural, and there's a lot of people in the middle who's like, I'm sick of this shit, and it's getting crazy, and they end up voting for the right because it's they have no other options. And like, I'm not like, I call myself not a very right wing guy, but I gotta admit, the left have pushed me farther and farther right with a lot of the crazy shit they're doing right now.
Yeah, I think most people feel that way. I mean, I don't feel like I'm any, like, I think that's what everyone says. I don't feel like I'm any more right than I always have been, for the most part. Like, I always thought pride parades were tacky. I always thought that kids don't need to see guys walk around in, you know, leather jock straps and you know, on a leash and crap. Like, you know, I always thought that. Yeah. Oh, there was something else I was going to say earlier. I was going to mention something about Milo. I think it's really a shame. Well, not a shame. No, I think it's actually more funny that both the short-sighted people who want to talk about politics but don't really actually understand politics, you know, like, and which is most people are like that these days. It used to be that like a bunch of people just wouldn't actually talk about politics. They wouldn't even try. Currently, most people want to have an opinion about politics, even if they know nothing. And what I think is funny is that the people who are like that, all those people think that Milo is completely defeated and finished, and that they think that he's gone and he's never coming back. And it's like, okay, you can go ahead and think that. You can also go ahead and think that Donald Trump and God, I'm starting to drink. Steve Bannon you can also go ahead and think that Donald Trump and Steve Bannon don't talk anymore, and that also that Steve Bannon wasn't the main Trump campaign manager the whole time, and you just didn't know it. You can also think that. You can think that Trump had other people actually being the campaign manager the whole time, and it wasn't actually secretly Steve Bannon the whole time. You can go ahead and think that if you want to. I knew, like, as soon as Milo started popping up all the time, and he was working for Breitbart, and he was so adamant about his support for Trump, and then he was planning his tour, and he started going on tour. I was like, oh, something's going on here. This guy is working directly somehow with Trump, or close to directly. I know it. I knew that. And then sure enough, by the end of the election, Steve Bannon was the official campaign manager. And I was like, see, I knew it. I knew it. Steve Bannon works for, or Milo works for Bannon. Bannon was directly working with Trump. I was right the whole time. And what I would say is that, I mean, I don't know. I've never talked to Milo. I don't know him. And, you know, like Chadwick and I know Chadwick in the context of Chadwick. We don't really talk about Milo. Like we talk about, you know, like what Milo did and what Milo became famous, like, for sure, a little bit about, you know, the stuff that everybody would know about Milo. But Chadwick's not like telling me anything about Milo that would be secret, you know? Like if Chadwick is ever going to tell me anything like that, it's going to be in a long time, you know? We don't know each other that well. I don't have any access to, like, secret information about Milo. But what seems pretty obvious to me is just simply that the only reason, okay, the left thinks that people don't like Milo because he is a Nazi, for the most part.
He's not.
Well, yeah. And first of all, he's not.
You know, how I know is I get called Nazi all the fucking time, and when I met this alt-right dude in Vegas, I went on a whole 20-minute rant, and mostly because maybe all the alcohol and all the other stuff that's in my system was like, I am so fucking tired of getting called a Nazi. Like, it's at a point where it's like, back in the past, I used to be fearful, like, oh, don't call me a Nazi. No, I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a white supremacist. It's like, it's just annoying. So it's obvious that I'm not a Nazi. Like, if you look at the definition of Nazi, is somebody part of the German Workers' Socialist Party. So I'm an entrepreneur who's from America, who's believing in Western values, who hates socialists.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's one of those things where it's like it's mostly annoying. And but continue your point. I'm sorry. It's just,
oh yeah. Well, a funny thing that you can always do. One of the things that you can always say to these, you know, far leftist morons, you know, these people who just don't know anything, you know, the people who just don't know it. You can be like, yeah, you know, the white male capitalist patriarchy is a problem because, you know, that's what's responsible for Nazi Germany, right? And they would say, oh yeah, totally. And, or, you know, you say the white male capitalist Christian patriarchy, that's what is responsible for Nazi Germany. I mean, if it wasn't for that stuff, we wouldn't have had Nazi Germany. And they would say, yeah, exactly. Thank you. And then you say, you do know that Hitler was an atheist, don't you? You do know that Nazi Germany was socialist, don't you? You know, like and they don't. They literally don't know those things.
He was very pro. He was very anti-capitalist. He was very pro-abortion. He was very pro women. Believe it. He was a feminist. He was a big feminist. He was a soy boy. He was literally a soy boy. He was a vegan.
He was a vegan?
Yeah. He was a soy boy. He was just a soy boy that had power. And I believe that if today's soy boy had power, they'd be the next Hitler. So it would be some blue-haired feminist shooting back of the head in front of while calling you a bigot inside of a hole. You goddamn bigot, pew, and shoot. No, but Hitler was a soy boy. And people will get mad. Like he was an atheist soy boy who was a vegan.
Huh.
And I met Milo in Vegas, and the guy is just super duper sweet. I got a bunch of pictures on my phone which I don't remember taking. I'll send to you later.
Hold on, let me grab my other beer.
Like since I've been this live stream, I'm like, I was a couple beers in. I've been drinking consistently this whole live stream. Oh man, I gotta go to work tomorrow. It's not gonna be. I gotta work tomorrow. Is right now is tomorrow.
The offer to withdraw.
Hello.
Yeah, well, I just realized I'm supposed to be working. I gotta work tomorrow. I'm super duper drunk. I'm gonna be so unproductive tomorrow.
Okay, well,
today, but it's just one of the things I want to talk to you, and I don't know. We should probably. I don't know. It's up to you. I'm really drunk right now.
okay, well, no, we can wrap it up pretty soon, and then you go sleep. Because we've been on for almost 2 hours, so 2 hours, a few minutes is good to go.
Jesus.
So I was just gonna say about how it's funny that everybody thinks that, not everybody, but a huge percentage of even the internet thinks that Milo is finished and that his brand is ruined and that he's just this pathetic guy, and he's trying to make them feel that way. He had that whole picture with himself crying. And he's like, you guys don't care about me. I was a part of the free speech movement, and now I don't get any respect. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, you know that Milo is like a theater guy. You know that he's doing that on purpose. He wants you to think that, like, he's trolling you, essentially, for one. Two, like, sure, that whole thing that happened, what nobody actually thought that Milo was a Nazi. Like nobody actually, like the only people who actually thought that were people that are just too dumb to even fact check anything. And there's a lot of those people, but they don't count. The people who were calling him a Nazi in the news and everything, they knew that they were lying. They absolutely did. But they did it anyway. The only thing that actually got any traction was the thing where he was excusing pedophilia, or pedoastry rather, within the gay male community. And that is a significant thing. I mean, that's something that I would never do. I didn't have a relationship when I was that age with older men. I simply didn't do it. And I wouldn't talk about it as if it's some necessary thing. I would pose the philosophical argument that, like, ultimately in some countries it's legal to have sex with 14-year-olds. There's complicated law, and not even in some countries, but I mean countries like Germany, it is legal. It's not like Germany is all that of a crazy of a place to think about, And so we do have that, but ultimately, like, he's not he what he's talking about is something that he participated in as the victim, and his excuse for it was actually perfectly rational, but it came at a time when the impact of Milo had already hit. Like his whole thing, his whole message, his whole shtick, it was right at the end of the tour when that happened, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, more than anything, Milo already needed to get out of the public eye because people were starting to get sick of his ass. I think. That's what I think. Because he was everywhere, man. It was like you couldn't go a couple days without like some new Milo thing. And, he ended up on the Bill Maher show. And, it went from like feminists talking about, oh, he's this gay misogynist, blah blah blah, and you'd hear them talk about it till like all of a sudden you're seeing him on all these YouTube clips, and then all of a sudden you're seeing him on like primetime television, like real like HBO crap, and then you can only go like that for so long before you got to get out of the public eye.
No, I want to agree with you because right now it's Ben Shapiro, but Ben Shapiro is so fucking annoying. Like I like Ben Shapiro, but I'm getting tired of my wife is a doctor joke. And one thing I noticed with Ben Shapiro, because I'm making a really large Milo video on him, and I've been holding back off it. But one thing I noticed with Ben Shapiro was it was the Brett Kavanaugh. I said it right, thank God. I said his name right. With Brett Kavanaugh hearing the first half, Ben Shapiro's like, yeah, this is looking real bad for Republicans. So, but this before Brett got on stage and say, no, Brett you need to do this, and be real. Ben Shapiro, he doesn't try to push the edge. He only push conservative talking points. He just do it very quick. And the very next day, what I noticed is his Ben Shapiro the next day, he's like, yeah, with me, I'll be fighting back and all this bullshit. And like, no, you've been just yesterday, you made a video where you told Brett Kavanaugh that he should lay low and try to be smart and say the facts. And the next day, you felt the area around like, oh, what can I say to make sure my base is okay? And you took that route. So I met Milo in Vegas. So like, Milo, I see what you do. Like his video made my YouTube channel when I'm so drunk. When what happened in Berkeley, that was my first video that went viral. My first 300 subscribers came from that video. I had like 10 subscribers and it jumped to 300 overnight of me like, hey, this is really wrong. Like, I've been watching Milo for a while. I've been watching Milo when he was still in England, and this is just really wrong. He just want to talk, and you guys burnt down your campus for this. You guys are the fascists. Yeah. So I admit I have a special place in my heart for Milo. And even when I was in Vegas, we went to Margaritaville's, and I drank way too many margaritas, and I was a little bit fangirling him. Where to this day, they probably would say, "Yeah, you got kind of gay with Milo when he came down." And I admit it, I got kind of gay with Chadwick when I got drunk with him. My first met Chadwick, I got really drunk and got kind of gay with him.
Oh, he remembered.
What?
I don't know what. He said, oh yeah, I know.
Yes. And like, I have a special place in my heart for Chadwick, but like I got kind of gay with him a little bit. So it's like I have a special place in my heart for these people. I have a special place in my heart for you. It might be the alcohol. I'm like 7 beers in and half a jar of moonshine. But I got a special place of heart with you two, Prince, because you're a real rational guy, and I love watching your contents.
Oh, well, thank you. I just think the thing is with Milo is that Milo is, and I say this as I don't want to say how smart I am, but I'm certainly a little. I will fully admit that I am a little bit of an elitist. Like, sure, fine, you caught me. I mean, there's a reason I call myself Prince of Queens. Fine, I try to pretend to not be like that, but I kind of am. And Milo is somebody that I actually really respect a lot. He's smart. He's a lot smarter than people give him credit for. And they were for they worshipped the ground he walked on when he was going on tour, and they were the meme was you can't stump Milo, because they would watch people try to ask him questions, and he always had the perfect comeback for it. And all of the fanboys, all of the just the whole internet fanboys admitted that he was really, really good at that. Well, and now they kind of act like he's irrelevant, and that he and it's just like maybe he's just taking time off, which I always knew he was going to do anyway. Like when he was on the Rubin Report one time, and he actually just sorry, I got distracted. I looked at the chat, and the all right guys trying to say that I'm an honorary member of their team anyway. Thanks, I'll pass. I don't need to be part of the psych. By the way, just for the record, anyone all right that's watching this, I want to ask you a question. If you're trying to create a white ethno state or some crap like that, and if you want to tackle this question, send me a super chat. Otherwise, this is the last I'm done talking to this alt-right guy in the chat. Here's the question I got to ask you. If all of the Islamic governments in the world and all of their citizens join forces to wage a full-scale war on the West, do you or do you not want black soldiers fighting for the future of the white race? Okay? It's the only question I got to ask you. Get back to me with the super chat if you want to engage further. Anyhow, so I would have thought when Milo was on Dave Rubin, the Rubin Report, there was a moment when Milo, like, okay, I don't want to say this because I don't know for sure, but Milo was like, look at all these vitamins that my personal trainer is having me take, and he like held up a weekly pill container and started shaking it around, and Dave Rubin gave this like wide-eyed, like whoa boy, like kind of a look to it. And I think that there is a high likelihood that Milo might have been taking some sort of like prescription speed, like some Adderall and that kind of a thing to keep going while he was on his tour, because that must have been a crazy time. Like, he was super busy. And they were having to write new speeches every couple days, and he had to be on and do interviews and fly. It's not easy to fly just in one day, and then do a speech every night and everything. You can't just do that. And so I was thinking to myself, I was like, when all of the dust settles and everything cools down, this guy is going to have to take some time off. And then, as luck would have it, he's taking some time off. And that's what's going on. And so, like, people, it's kind of embarrassing that people are so foolish as to think like, oh, well, he's a gay guy and he's like sort of linked to pedophilia. He's finished. His career is over. And it's like, really? You guys think that that's still how it is? You guys just think that, oh, he's a gay guy and somebody said the word pedophilia in the same sentence, even though he was the victim and even though he had a perfectly logical response for it? You think that he's over? You think that he's done? You think that Steve Bannon isn't talking to him anymore? Steve Bannon, who also supposedly isn't talking to Donald Trump, even though Steve Bannon is touring Europe, giving press releases about...
They got some stuff I can't say on the stream. I'll tell you after the stream.
Yeah.
But he's... That's what you want to think. Ben Shapiro is going to be punched in the neck in the next year, and it's going to be fun because I know everything.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't know everything. I am just talking about this as Prince of Queens, Prince of Conspiracies. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that I am the king of conspiracies. When I predict, like when I say something, makes, like, hey, yet another one came true. Yet another one came true just in the past 2 weeks. Was I not saying from the beginning that the Me Too was a political movement that was going to end up as a hit job trying for feminists to grasp for power?
Yes.
I said that. I said that within 48 hours of it even becoming a hashtag. I said, no, I know exactly what this is. And bam, Kavanaugh. Bam, the epitome of it. 11 months later, so.
No, like I said, I'm so happy. We should end the stream soon because I'm really drunk at this point.
Okay. You know what? Actually, we should end it. So, hey, Mr. Christian alt-right dude, that I said that you could super chat me for the I don't think that's going to happen tonight. And UK Sin said, did you ever sort out the radical lesbians destroying your mailbox? I have no idea what you're talking about. Radical lesbians don't really do a whole bunch. Magdalene Burns Magdalene Burns, that YouTuber that seems like she's on heroin, who's a lesbian, she did pay someone to dox me. That did happen. I could prove it. I have messages in my Twitter DMs of this thing being a thing. Somebody basically confessing that he was trying to get my docs because I was messing with Magdalene Burns, and they had said that. But I don't know anything about this mailbox thing. I have no reason to believe that any radical lesbians would mess with my mailbox. I don't know what you're talking about, and I think that we're going to end this stream now. I'm going to talk with Yosef after for a little bit.